Hi, welcome back. So I tried to access my account on X or Twitter today and it was blocked. And why is that? That's because the Brazilian Supreme Court have suspended the X platform in the whole country. So if I try and access my account, I just get this error message here. And this started a couple of days ago, so on Friday the 30th of August, and it's still going on now. Now, apparently it's still possible to access the X platform if you use a VPN, which is this service which hides your IP address. But the Supreme Court has threatened that anyone who accesses the X platform through a VPN will be fined 50,000 reais, which is $9,000. Now, there are lots of questions about how the Brazilian authorities will actually work out who has accessed the X platform through a VPN, because that's one of the reasons why you have a VPN, to kind of hide your internet activity. The authorities would have to request the records from all the VPN companies, and I'm not sure that these companies would provide that. And then there's also questions about whether the Brazilian authorities have the resources as well to investigate this. So yeah, lots of questions there, but I'm not such a big fan of X that I'm gonna try and do this and risk getting a fine, that's for sure. Now, if you're not aware of how this whole situation arose, let me just give you some background. Now, this disagreement between X and the Brazilian Supreme Court has been going on for a long time, but then in the last month or so, it's really blown up. So the Brazilian Supreme Court, in particular one judge, his name is Alexandre de Moraes, so he requested that X block some accounts on the platform who were spreading disinformation and various other things. Now, X didn't comply with that, so they didn't remove or block these accounts. So then the Supreme Court fined X. And I think the total of the fines are about 18 million reais, which is just over $3 million. But X decided not to pay these fines. Then after that, X, or Elon Musk, who's the big owner in X, decided to shut down their Brazilian office. So they fired some employees and transferred other employees overseas. And so X no longer had any employees or any physical presence in Brazil. Now that broke another Brazilian law, which is that companies like X, who offer internet services, need to have a legal representative in the country. So then the Supreme Court asked X to provide a legal representative of the company in Brazil, and X refused that as well. So you can kind of see the pressure building. So X didn't remove those accounts or block those accounts that the Supreme Court requested. Then they were issued fines, but they didn't pay those fines. Then they removed all their employees, which broke another law. And then the Supreme Court asked for a legal representative, and X said, no, we're not providing that. So it's just building. And then finally the Supreme Court said, enough is enough. We're going to suspend X in the whole country. And that happened on Friday, so the 30th of August. Now, the Brazilian press, they've been talking a lot about this, and it's basically been the main headline in a lot of the newspapers and the TV news reports over the last couple of days. And the opinion in these news reports and also the general public is varied. So there are many who believe that, yes, when a company breaks the law and doesn't follow what the Supreme Court decides, then yes, their business should be suspended. But then you've got the other side as well, who argue that suspending X is disproportionate and very harsh, and not only punishes X, but also just the general public. Because suddenly Brazilians can't access X, which they use for news and for communication, but then you also have many people who make a living from X, so they promote their business or service, or they create content on X and earn a living that way. And I'll probably say that these people are probably suffering more than X. And then you've got the issue of freedom of speech as well, and many argue that the Supreme Court should not have the power to suddenly decide that no Brazilian can access this social media. And I understand both sides. I mean, it's definitely not black and white. It's a lot more complicated than that. But then you have the other matter of the 50,000 reais fines for anyone who accesses the X platform through a VPN. And with this, the majority of experts and just the public opinion is that this fine is over the top and should not have been implemented. Because it's one thing punishing X, but it's another thing punishing the general public for trying to access the X platform, and so this has not gone down well at all. And there are many legal groups who have written to the Supreme Court asking for these fines to be taken away. But the drama doesn't end there. So there's another company called Starlink, which Elon Musk also partly owns, and this company offers internet access to people in remote places, so where people don't have mobile phone reception or they don't have fiber cables, they can still get internet access if they subscribe to Starlink. So then you have a satellite dish on your property, and then that communicates with Starlink satellites up in space, and you get internet that way. So many Brazilians out in the countryside use this service. And so the Supreme Court decided to block all the bank accounts of Starlink in Brazil. And they've done that for two reasons. One, because X haven't paid those fines of 18 million reais, $3 million. And also because Starlink has refused to block access to X for its customers. So any Brazilian who's a customer of Starlink can still access their account on the X platform, and that goes against the ruling of the Supreme Court. So because of those two reasons, the Supreme Court blocked all the bank accounts, so Starlink can't access its money in Brazil. But that hasn't stopped Starlink, so Starlink is still providing this service to its Brazilian customers, and it's currently free of charge until its bank accounts have been unblocked. But this raises lots of other questions as well, because these two companies are separate companies. Yeah, Elon Musk is an owner of both, but they are two separate entities. And so many feel that Supreme Court has overstepped the boundary again because they're blocking the bank accounts of one company, when actually their issue is with a totally separate company. So I mean, this whole thing is just escalating and escalating, and at the moment there's no sign of either side letting up and reaching some sort of compromise. So nobody knows how long this is going to go on for. But it's worth noting that this isn't the only time it's happened. So a number of years ago, WhatsApp was blocked, was suspended in the whole of Brazil because they didn't comply with some rules and some requests from the Supreme Court. But then that was resolved and service was resumed again. And then another time it happened with Telegram, which is similar to WhatsApp. Again, there were some issues, it got suspended, but then they resolved it and everything was fine again. So it has happened in the past, and with those cases it was resolved. But this thing with X feels a bit differently here, and I think partly it's because you've got two men with very big egos, and neither of them wants to give any ground or reach any compromise. So if there are any more developments, I'll do another video. So please leave a like, subscribe. If you've got any questions or anything, leave in the commentary below. So thanks for watching, until next time.